Hello everyone. So we will begin reading chapter 5, which is labeled Moleskine number 319. The cabins were small, but nicer than Grace had expected. They were equipped with a writing desk, bookshelves, a wardrobe, a bathroom, and a comfortable bunk, and in her cabin, an African gray parrot that was delighted to see her. Congo jumped from his perch to her shoulder. His injured wing still prevented him from flying, and together they explored their living quarters. Okay, so we have some information here about their living area and their cabin. So it had a writing desk, bookshelves, a wardrobe, bathroom, a comfortable bunk, and of course her African gray parrot. Okay, and we do note that he has an injured leg. Okay, and that's all within her cabin. And also we have a good vocab word here, and this is perch. So this is kind of like he jumped from his perch, like the high level down to her shoulder. Okay, to continue on, it says the walls were paneled in beautiful blonde wood, and with the setting sun dancing through the portholes, the overall effect was quite cheerful. It was hard to believe that such horrible things had happened aboard this ship. Okay, so we have some more evidence of that cabin. They were paneled with blonde wood. Okay. The only thing Grace hadn't been able to find was her Frankenstein monkey. She'd been searching for it for days, and she knew she was too old for stuffed animals, but she'd had Monkey her entire life. Marty had named Monkey after Dr. Frankenstein's monster because the fabric was covered with patches and stitches that looked like scars. Its mouth and ears were long gone, but they had recovered its left arm with I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Marty had named Monkey after Dr. Frankenstein's monster because the fabric was covered with patches and stitches that looked like scars. Its mouth and ears were long gone, but they had recovered its left arm in the Congo, and Wolf had stitched it back on. Grace had asked Marty if he'd seen it, and he'd told her it was probably packed away somewhere that she hadn't looked yet. Or he could be so dense sometimes that it was so hard to believe they were related. She could not imagine sailing to New Zealand without Monkey, but it looked like she was going to have to. Okay, so this is obviously a very important relic for her. So we're going to go ahead and highlight Monkey. Named after Frankenstein. It had patches and stitches. And the left arm was left in the Congo, so we know that that's there. Okay. Continuing on. She put Marty and Luther's things away, hoping to find Monkey stuffed in one of Marty's bags, but it wasn't there. Disappointed, she unpacked her own gear, saving the Moleskine journals for later. She dragged the heavy suitcase into her cabin and began sorting through the black-covered diaries, placing them on the shelves above the desk, one at a time in order, like small slices of her life. The third to last Moleskine, number 316, looked different from the others. It was swollen and battered from their revengals in Lake Tao, but it was the most important. It was in that slice of her life that Grace had learned who she really was, who her father was, and who her grandfather was. She glanced over at the trunk with the faded rose painted on the lid, which she still had not opened. Inside it all, that was mother was. Inside it all, that my mother was. It's a little odd, she thought. Rose. Grace took a brand new Moleskine out of the drawer, peeled off the plastic covering, opened it to the first blank page, and began to write with her fountain pen. Okay, so what we need to note here about these journals is that they are definitely very important to her. So it gives her this detail of her life, right? So she finally was able to figure out who her grandfather was, who her real father was, who she really was, and stuff all about her mother. Okay, her mother Rose. And one other thing that we need to note about these journals is that, you know, they're all black. They're all in her cabin now. Now they're all made of that Moleskine. And of course, they're numbered, right? So 316 is her most important. right? But remember that this passage is labeled 319, so of course we'll be getting there. Okay, so she began to write with her fountain pen. It doesn't seem like my birthday because I thought I had already turned 13 on Marty's birthday a couple of months ago. Nevertheless, I'm commemorating the day by starting a new Moleskine, my third since we got back to the island. No word about Marty's parents. He doesn't talk about them much, except to ask once in a while if I think they're okay, but I know he thinks about them. I was just unpacking his things and found several drawings of them in his sketchbook. It made me sad to think of him alone in his room, drawing them from memory, so he won't forget them. The drawings are beautifully detailed. They look like photographs, almost as if he's willing them back to life, back to us on paper, if Wolf doesn't find them soon. But he will find them. He told me yesterday that he wished he was in Brazil looking for them himself, but without any real leads. There's little point in him personally hacking his way through the rainforest. He has a dozen people searching the area where the helicopter crashed and burned, and he's paying them a fortune. This is why this expedition is so important. Most of E-Wolf's money is tied up in the research and development. He and Ted Bronson are nearly broke. They had to borrow the money for the expedition. If Wolf doesn't bring in a live giant squid, his company will go bankrupt. They'll lose the island and everything they own, and if they bring one in, Wolf will get half the gate receipts from NZA for as long as the squid, singular or plural, survives. Phil and Bertha Bishop drove our stuff down to the dock in one of the surplus Humvees. We had a hassle with all Ike's security guards. They wanted to search everything. This would be fine normally, but there was one item I did not want them to search because I haven't opened it myself. My mother's trunk, which was brought back from the Congo. It took a call to Wolf to get to the guards to back off. I drove down the dock, ordered them to leave the trunk alone, and help me bring it into the cabin. Marty opened the trunk when I was kidnapped by Butch McCall. He was trying to find a clue about where I was. Instead, he found my past. He discovered that I'm his cousin, not his twin sister, that my grandfather is Noah Blackwood, and that my real father is Travis Wolf. That my real mother's name was Rose, and that she was the only child of Noah Blackwood. And I thought about leaving the trunk on Kryptos, but realized that I had no sooner do that than Wolf could leave the dinosaur eggs on the island. I could not leave my past behind unprotected. Marty already told me that he was inside the trunk. Newspapers, clippings, research notes, photos of my mother when she was my age, and photos of me when I was a baby in the Congo, before my mother was killed by a Mokum when I was 2, and Moleskines, just like the one I'm writing in now, stacks of them, Marty said. I'm looking at the trunk right now. Did my mother paint the rose on the lid? Will I go through the trunk on the voyage? I don't know, but I'm glad it's here. My mother is buried beneath a mound of rocks in the small clearing near Lake Tell in the Congo, but her life is in the corner of my little cabin. Okay, so before we start the next chapter, so some of the things that we learned here is definitely about her and what was in this trunk. So we can definitely note here that they found tons of newspaper clippings of the trunk, research notes, photographs, right? And how her mother was killed. So, well, not killed, but she was killed by when she was 2. And of course, now she's buried beneath rocks in the small clearing Lake Tell. So that's important. That's where her mother is. So those are all details about her mother. Okay, and some other things here that we need to note. So Phil and Bertha Bishop, right? So remember them because they are they were mentioned as being the chiefs and the chefs and things like that. So they're also, doing multiple jobs for the wolves, right? And then of course we definitely need to note that Butch McCall was the one that kidnapped Marty. Didn't kidnap Marty. He kidnapped Grace in this entire extravagant thing. And we also learned a whole bunch more stuff about her life, right? So who her grandfather is, who her father is, So those were all important details here in this passage. So make sure that you know those, right? And we also need to know that this trip is by far one of the most important for E-Wolf, right? So they have to find a squid, otherwise they're going to go bankrupt, right? And NZA is going to do that, and NZA, remember, is owned by Noah Blackwood.